Hello, everybody. Hope you're all having a wonderful day so far. Welcome to our patch 13.15 rundown. My face has disappeared. There it is. Patch 13.15 for amateur play, which, as you guys know at this point, is where we take our system of predictive criteria and use it to predict whether any big champion pool shakeups need to happen in coordinated play, right? And as usual, we're expecting most of these small numbers changes to be solo queue win rate changes that really don't affect whether we should be playing a champion or whether we need to change our pools or our strategies or anything like that. And so, we'll just do our usual checks. It is pretty late. I do want to get some solo queue in tonight. I actually have to get some solo queue in tonight because I need like one more game to be eligible for my tournament matches, right? And I have glanced over the patch, so we will be able to be quick on this one, right? Hopefully. And the reason I'm so late is because I was trying to, I was trying to be present in an Emerald Draft League stream, right? I was trying to be in the Twitch chat and engage with the community a little more. They were doing some power rankings, and I wasn't super high, and we kind of expected that, right? But I was pretty fairly placed, like around 4 average, which for raw laning and raw general top laning, I think is pretty fair. I think my contributions to the team as a whole are greater, but, that's not really it. Although there are a lot of champions, but most of them are small numbers, right? Okay, Aatrox. This is a follow-up to his buff last patch, which we assessed as crazy. That was a lot of damage, and I thought he... the follow-up work that I did after the stream, I concluded he's a pretty illegal champion. Very, very high damage. And what's funny is LCK last night just went on to 13-14, and T1, who isn't known for the best drafting, they did first pick Aatrox. And I was telling all my low elo teams, it's like, no, illegal champion. Don't let him through, right? So they are cutting the buff that he got in half, right? Because it was, or not exactly, the total AD ratio went up to 100% on Q, but I didn't actually write down exactly what it was before because, like, why would I, right? So let's just see exactly what is what and what's been rolled back and what hasn't. So last patch, it went from 60 to 100, or from 60 to 80 up to 60 to 100, so sure enough, this part was not increased. And that, of course, because it's super doubled, goes up to 150% AD on third cast, which in Sweet Spot goes up to... well, that's the full combo, right? Which in Sweet Spot is 240%. Now, it's going up to 135%, so it's losing 15% AD. And the third cast Sweet Spot is down to 216%, so it's losing close to 20... Like, it's losing 24% AD, right? I'm pretty sure we could have rated his damage as excessive before, right? What are my ratio criteria? I keep saying I'm going to edit these, and I never do. So this is Aatrox's primary DPS spell, and he relies pretty entirely on the damage that this deals, right? And so Aatrox is very sensitive to these changes, right? Well, hang on. If before the patch, if before 13-14 he was like, fine, right? I mean, we don't even have to use our criteria. We can just use, like, basic reasoning, right? Before he got buffed, he was fine. He was alright, yeah? Then he got buffed and he dealt way too much damage. He was broken. And now he's getting half of the buff. And so we probably conclude he lands, like, reasonably strong, right? I mean, because the champion is based entirely around how much damage he's dealing, and he's still dealing more damage than before, and he still has a pretty good, flexible kit if you're good at him, so why not, right? I will, like, may as well keep him in your pool, but I don't think we should, like, permaban him and make him fully illegal, right? I was using, like, on Lolalytics, which was really, really warped stat-wise on 13-14. He was sitting around, like, a 56% win rate, which is 3.5% higher than the average win rate Emerald Plus, and, like, that's why it was so distorted. So he was still, like, in a normal system about 54, right? Which we usually don't care about, but that's kind of my take on it. Okay, headshots. Critical strike rate coefficient 1.2 to 1.3, which grants plus 27 base damage at 100% critical strike chance. Which, if it crits, and it will because it's 100%. Where's my calculator? Well, crits 175 right now. Because we want to find the exact increased damage. Which would be 47 increased damage on a headshot. Which is actually 75, 85, 95, 1, 200, 215. So it's actually... So it's like, yeah, every headshot is 58 damage stronger. Assuming that there's no ratio that I really need to factor in before it crits. Which I'm sure there is. I mean, there is. It's Caitlyn, right? Yeah, and that was this bit right here. Times 130% critical strike chance. Oh, I see what they mean. I see what they mean. Because the thing's scaled with... Yeah. That's complicated. Which is why they had to clarify exactly what it is. All right, you're getting flashbanged again. Just a few more times, right? And Ace in the Hole is also going from 2.5% additional damage per 10% crit to 3.5% additional damage per 10% crit. And again, not affecting her lane at all. And not affect... It is just supposed to empower her scaling. So... I mean, 525 times... I mean, we'll be on like 2 items at this point. I think I can see the exact changes, right? So on 40% crit, this is now 14. Before, it was 10%. It's such a negligible change until the hyper late game, no? No? I mean, like... Yeah, this doesn't change any power troughs. So we've got like plus 58 damage best case per headshot, which doesn't occur often. They didn't ship the change where... Wait, did they? Hang on. Did they ship that Runon's thing? Because they were considering it. They were considering giving Caitlyn her Runon synergy back. But it does not look like they shipped that. No. So she didn't get her Runon synergy back. Headshot's just, like, negligibly stronger. Ace in the Hole takes a really, really long time to scale up. You still have, like, I mean, is Caitlyn going to be bullying early game super, super easily? I think there's a lot of good Caitlyn partners that are strong still, but none that are in meta, right? Yeah, it used to be a thing, like, way back when. And it's funny because it was total bait. Like, they nerfed Runons, and then they killed the interaction. What used to happen is Caitlyn used to get, like, headshot spams, because every bolt would give her progress. So if you were standing in a bush, it'd be like, headshot, 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 you know? No, they were going to do exactly what I just described, right? And it was total bait at the time. And so when the interaction got removed, Caitlyn swapped to Shiv, and her win rate went up. It was really funny. But as this is, like I don't think this makes Caitlyn immediately stronger, and just because, like, Rel is the support, like, most shaping the meta, I don't think it makes her just spontaneously appear, you know? Because you would kind of have to run, like, Caitlyn Janna, and that's volatile. Yeah, I think Caitlyn's just inconsistent, and giving her scaling damage won't fix that, right? Okay, Camille, getting some attack damage growth, which usually does very little, in terms of our pick conditions. She is also gaining... Oh my god. Plus 15, 20, 25 magic damage per attack in Hextech Ultimatum. Now, is she a high attack speed auto attacker? No. Is she still going to proc this like 4 times in an all-in combo? Yes. Is that easily within our threshold for more lethal windows? Yes. Yeah, which means Caitlyn, or not Caitlyn, Camille, who I already assess, although I haven't updated my solo lane lists in a long time. Camille, who I already assess to be pretty good in low-level amateur play, right? Is just a lot more capable of killing you early. So. That's... Okay, so just because she gets that doesn't make her, like, a pure auto attacker, right? Yes, she auto attacks for her damage, but she's not an attack speed, like, she's not building uber attack speed to really make this disgusting. Like, if this appears on Ardent, or this appears on Kog'Maw or something, it's broken, you know? Because it's on Camille and not one of those things, it's not broken, it's just very good. So, truthfully, I don't care about that property. Like, I know about that property. I know she values some attack speed. More than likely, actually, it's going to make her, like, hyper late game really gross. So, better lethal windows early. Yeah. Better lethal windows early, better scaling. Camille's good. Camille does a lot of damage. Camille will find it easier to kill her targets, and because we're in a meta with a lot of dive comp champions, right? Like, Trista's super good, Rella's super good, Rakan is super good, like... It's easy to build dive comps right now, then Camille should probably become a little higher presence. Right. Okay, Gwen. Gwen is getting 0.5 HP 5, which, sure, that's alright. And she is also getting plus 5 bonus armor MR at all ranks on W. So, we actually can plug this into our... because I updated my calculator for Hecarim, we can plug this in. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, what's going on? So Gwen has base 620 health. Gwen has 109 HP per level. Gwen has 39 base armor. And 5.2 base armor per level. We're just using armor in this case. Then her bonus resistances are going from 17 to 22. Okay, hang on. I'm just making this easier to work with. $17 to $22, and then because it's a buff, I'm just going to invert these. Okay, there we go. So, she is gaining 18 armor MR at level 1, which actually she won't, because it's only level 3. She only skills it at... sorry, not armor MR. She's gaining 20 effective HP at 3. She's gaining... I mean, it takes her until level 9 to hit 40 effective HP, and that's our lethal window, 40, right? So, practically, I don't think Gwen is surviving enough new things for this to really change. And granted, by the end of the game, this is going from 25 to 30, and so we'll account for that, right? And even at this point, I mean, like, 50 HP at level 18, I don't really value very highly. So this, to me, is a solo queue win rate buff for Gwen, and her pick conditions won't change at all. Ivern. So Ivern is getting the most by far, and they are trying to harm his AP builds. Now, I do think his AP builds are a lot better in solo queue, and, like, the lower level you go in amateur, the better those get. But they're also saying, like, Night Harvester is his best mythic, and... Like, I've built it myself, right? I do like it. I'm an Ivern enthusiast, right? But you also have to realize that Ivern with Night Harvester, if you put the E on somebody else, a Night Harvester doesn't proc. Like, this is exclusively a Daisy engine, right? Which is kind of funny. They are reducing Ivern's base MR a little bit. They are giving Ivern's Bush on hits the same value as his own on allies, right? So sorry, that's a terrible sentence. They are giving Ivern's ally on hit damage the same value as his own on hit damage. Except the ratio is still reduced, right? Which is power positive. right? This does introduce a lot of damage to Ivern as long as he's playing around his teammates. The base shield is going up from 5 to 25, and the ratio is being slashed by 25%. This is a big deal, right? This is absolutely a big deal. But it's not like it's going to make Ivern weak, right? It's just going to make it so that, like, you know, you can't rush a mandate and have as much shielding. There's more of a trade-off, right? And at the same time, Daisy is out for less time. Her armor and magic resist is now no longer going to scale. It's going to be weaker for much of the game, right? It's non-linear. So is this stat growth scaling? Approximately, okay, very, very small durability decrease overall here. So what is this? Daisy lasts less time, is harder to kill because of smite, but is slightly squishier. And then her attack damage scales less with Ivern's AP, so she's less of a menace. I mean, Daisy becoming less of a menace is a lot, right? But what does Ivern have? He still has good damage with W, he still has great catch, he still has a great clear, he still has great shielding. It's just that his ability to hard 1v9 is worse. And so for someone like me who is mechanically poor at the champion, that loses a lot of like solo queue skirmishing value. And when overall skirmishing value goes down, I think that does impact power in low level competitive. That said, I do think all of his I do think most of his strengths are still here, right? And I do not think that the Shurelias or Moonstone builds or anything like that are really impacted at all. In fact, they're probably stronger. So, I mean, I do believe that Ivern is here to stay. However, he is less oppressive in low-level chaotic amateur, right? So, we'll probably still see top-level prioritize him, but we will probably prioritize him less unless there is an Ivern player. How hard is it to determine the value of bonus resistances when a large portion of the character's durability budget comes from healing? That is a very good point. Gwen is a great Enchantress synergy champion, and she, like those resistances matter. It does mean that her, effective HP boost is higher than we gave it credit for, right? It's not that she's gaining 40 effective HP. She's actually able to sustain for a longer duration. So that's a good point, right? But I think we can agree that some of her survivability windows were gross to begin with. And so, if we already assessed that to be very good, and the effective HP increase is not, crazy, then we still just consider Gwen good, right? That's my take on it, at least. How goes things? Things are pretty good. There's not a lot of major changes that we have to think about in this patch so far. So, now this could be one of them. Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa is losing 30 base HP. She is losing quite a lot of damage on Icathian Rain, the AP ratio, and the cooldown reduction after evolution is going down 2%, which they say is functionally an 8.7% cooldown increase. Now, practically, this is what I've heard. Their intent was to make it noticeably harder for Kai'Sa to full proc her plasma at max range on W. So realistically, the best case of AP Kai'Sa is not changed much at all. It's just her ability to finish her targets and fight at close range is a lot worse. Because look, maximum single target damage is going from 112.5% AP down to 75% AP. That is poor on scaling, right? That's very poor on scaling. The more AP items you buy, the worse off this is. Which does mean, if you are building the Ginsu's variant, if we pivot, for example, to Nashor's on 3rd, it means we get much of Kai'Sa's marksman value, and we honestly don't sacrifice that much for still having a splash of AP, right? But it means the pure AP Kai'Sa, I mean, it's still... my guess is that it is still annoying as hell. It is still strong in its best case, but, this is an artillery mage, right? This is a pure artillery mage with noticeable downtime if you miss. Granted, it's hard to miss. You need to be like 200 to 400 units closer now. That's a big deal. That is a big deal. Yep. So, all that said, is AP Kai'Sa oppressive? Well, some teams can't play Siege, right? Some teams in our level of play, lower level amateur, simply cannot play Siege. Some can, but some can't. So against those teams, I would imagine a Kai'Sa relying entirely on her W with less ability to execute you and capitalize on the first hit is a weaker champion who does not need to be B1'd, right? So where does that leave just regular AD Kai'Sa? Well, I still think the fast Q one-shot builds are awkward right now. And I still do think as a marksman, right now she has some value as Vayne with Wave Clear, right? I don't want to be too reactive to it, because, like, right, I don't want to overreact, but my gut, looking at this, thinking about the options that she's lost, right? Because we can't use predictors. We can't use predictors for our numbers. We just have to think about options. Thinking about the options that she's lost, I don't think we sweat it too much if Kai'Sa gets left through open in draft. And I think she remains pickable. I think all her styles are pickable. And if she's appropriate for the game, sure. And, you know, Kai'Sa is one of the most disgusting snowballers in bot lane. And low-level amateur, we don't play our bot lanes cleanly. But, yeah, so I think she's all right. I'm going to get, like, a more concrete opinion on that as I look at her and watch her develop. But, like, I would be willing to gamble and just leave Kai'Sa for my enemy in amateur this week. Right. Okay, Maokai's losing 20 damage to monsters flat at all ranks to slow down his clear speed a little bit. If this creates a... Like, if this slows him down enough to force him to spend an extra Q on jungle camps, like, that can matter. But at the same time, I've said it a million times, low-level amateur, specific clear speed breakpoints don't really matter too much. All that matters is whether a champion is very slow or very fast. And Maokai is just one of those champions that wins, like, Platinum Emerald games, right? So I don't care. Nami is gaining a 5% AP ratio on her bonus movement speed, and she is gaining plus 15 damage at all ranks on Aqua Prison, which is a non-threshold amount of damage, which means that realistically we don't care about any of these, and it's a solo queue win rate buff. Rel, all spells and abilities now apply the damage first, then apply passive. Previously, Q, W2, and R would apply passive, then damage, but R, you know... and auto attacks would do the opposite. Excuse me. So that cleans up some inconsistency, but that is slightly power negative. Rel still deals less damage. Again, I will say that I think Rel's base kit is very good, and I don't care that she does little damage nowadays. Right. Q flash is cleaned up. Increased dash speed once she's locked onto a target, solving some bugs. Okay, I mean, yeah, nothing here that actually changes Rel's overall pick conditions or power level. She's still, I think, going to define our support in jungle meta to a degree. Sejuani loses 10 damage on for initial and 10 damage on second cast, and that is 20 damage, which is a non-threshold amount of damage, and so we do not care. This is easy today. Shyvana is getting some numbers. She's getting some just flat... Okay, AD growth usually translates to absolutely nothing, right? And health growth, I mean, this is going to be so minor, right? Shyvana losing 5 per level. It could add up to something. Remember, it's not linear. So let me just plug Shyvana's numbers in. Basically, what happened is last patch, I predicted that Shyvana is... What did I predict exactly? Let's find out. We got support for AD builds, and we found evidence that Titanic is good on, like, proper tank Shyvana, and that's kind of a big deal. And I imagined that this would be top lane support, right? And sure enough, we did see new top lane Shyvana builds, but we also saw her jungle win rate and solo queue skyrockets. I do still believe that's a solo queue only thing, the AD jungle Shyvana. But, you know, can't really argue with some of these numbers, so. Oops, did I? I think I nerfed Gwen by accident. What is this value? How is she gaining? What did I do? Oh. Shyvana's losing 180 effective health at 18, which is nerfing her full AD builds. She's losing 80 at 11. She's losing a non-threshold amount at 6. So this is a scaling nerf, so this is intended to impact primarily top lane. Bees do nothing. I mean, I think they could be like slightly impactful end game top lane full AD, but I agree that they do absolutely nothing on like the IVG Titanic sort of thing, right? And they do absolutely nothing for much of the. I mean, they start to kick in realistically around like 20, 25 minutes. And since that doesn't affect her weak early laning, like cool, good. But I think I agree. I think we're not going to dramatically change our understanding of her. Especially since I still believe that AD build is like really mistake reliant, right? Okay, Taliyah, she is gaining 5 damage per Q, which is what that translates to something weird. That translates to 9 point something on big Q, right? Which is a tiny amount of DPS. However, the thing that has changed is minus 2 seconds off early E, which is good for her safety in mid lane. That's an interaction based change, which means like, you know, it becomes more impactful mid lane at higher MMRs. Damage to monsters modifier. Her clear was pretty fine, right? What do my notes say about her clear? My notes say nothing about her clear. Okay, I mean, this is irrelevant, and whether she becomes faster or not off of this matters, and I do think Jungle Taliyah is, like, pretty average, right? Pretty solid. Decently good. She's just weak early. This doesn't change her being weak early, but if it speeds her up enough, I know I usually say that clear speed doesn't matter, but if it speeds her up enough, it actually provides a lot of safety for a really weak early champion in jungle, and so maybe there's some extra angles here. Pretty minor, though, and I wouldn't add her to your pool if you don't play her already, right? Yeah, Taliyah's unpopular, but I don't think she's bad, right? Yasuo, this... Wait, what's happening? A 30 to 50% larger shield in the mid game. It mirrors base stat scaling rather than jumping up. This is an 80 carry Yasuo buff, because if that comes online sooner for lower levels, cool. Although, is this like really that crazy? What did the Yone get? It's something similar, right? Yone got plus 15 at all ranks. Okay, non-threshold amount of shielding, whatever. No change in pick conditions here. I'm actually willing to argue this is also no change in pick conditions. 30 to 50% larger shield in the mid game. I don't know. Let's look exactly at the numbers. I think we get to be super lazy this patch, which is super good. So at level 9, it was 200. At level 9, it's now... Whoa! Wait a minute. At 6, it's 160. At 6, it's... Whoa! Hang on! No, that's well beyond threshold. Yasuo is a lot harder to kill. Which is really important for his power level, actually. Whoa! So the first time it becomes threshold is level 4. Wow, wait, the first time it... Okay. So Yasuo is the type of champion where he just, like, he fits... If you're building around him and you're able to protect him, he always does a lot of damage and he complements certain team comps well, right? His weakness is being volatile and easy to kill. And if that becomes... Oh my goodness! No. Okay, so mid lane Yasuo, the fundamental problem of him being easy to gank doesn't change. He just makes things volatile and scary. Bot lane Yasuo, because that threshold, like the lethal threshold comes online so soon, like level 4, and because he's so much easier to protect down there, and then you get all his value, that's really power impacting for AD carry Yasuo, I think. Granted, we're all marksman players anyway, so we won't see him, but... Okay. Neat. And so, just to conclude, again, pretty much, the only big things is Aatrox, probably not, like, B1 overpowered. Camille's much more valuable. Ivern's just shaken enough noticeably. Kai'Sa's probably not necessary to B1 all the time, and then everything else realistically doesn't change too much. We have Smite, which... The slow is now on second upgrade rather than first. Wow, they are really trying to nerf early ganking a lot. So, okay, let's wait and see what happens because this may shake up certain champions' ability to gank. And, wow, that's... I already think a lot of the really strong junglers are junglers that play for themselves if you can build the comp around them. Like, not necessarily the lanes. Like, the really strong junglers are greedy, and then the tier, like, directly below them is where, like, Rell, Jarvan, Sejuani, like, all those are. And those champions already have good enough tools to gank without relying on this change, but, like, that's interesting. And damage to non-lane minions, which is champions, it's quite a lot weaker, which is awesome for playing Ivern and Yorick and all that. And to compensate, they're nerfing all of our pets. This is that same... So Tibbers... Resistances no longer have an AP ratio. The health is going from 1300 to 3100 down to 1150 to 3500 with a lower ratio. So the base is higher, but takes longer to fully come online, but the ratio is lower. Approximately a 5 to 10% durability decrease. Numbers, blah, blah, blah. No pick conditions changes on Annie. Heimerdinger turret health change. The ult's turret only. It is down. Whoa, that is really significantly down. That is really significantly down. But it now has quite a lot more armor, which is why, right? Okay, well, we'll have to see if Heimer ult turret is easier to... I mean, unfortunately, it's just... I mean, there's so... Little durability changes on pets is never something I've actually had to solve for, right? Maiden regens. It's only 2.5 health per second. Like, she just has a normal HP 5 value. So I doubt this will make a huge difference, but, like, it is a good property for Maiden to have. She now also has armor and magic resist, which is a good property for Maiden to have. That said, oh my god, her base health looks awful. Really awful. Yeah, I don't want to understate how good these properties are. It's just hard for me to imagine it's, like, next to this, right? She's roughly 30 to 50% harder to kill, you believe were the numbers. Okay, so thank you for the numbers. I'm glad we actually have a Yorick player, right? And everything that makes Maiden harder... Yorick's barely a champion without his Maiden, and anything that makes her harder to kill is really good. Okay. So that's the context. She's up. She's harder to kill. I don't know exactly what that does to Yorick, because he is such a weird champion, and I haven't done a lot of work on solo lanes lately, but... Yeah. Okay, Night Harvester no longer procs on Shiv. That affects, like, exclusively LeBlanc, pretty much, right? Glacial Augment. The slow is now down 10% base. Scales twice as well with AP. Scales almost twice as well with AD. and the heal shield power ratio is unchanged. So they are trying to reduce its kill power so that Guardian and Aftershock seem more appealing. That is actually power impacting for Rel, potentially. I'm not qualified to talk about exactly how much. Not yet. I feel like I'm going to be really good at assessing slows, like, soon, right? I mean, okay, so the way slows work, though, is if you have a slow and they don't, you still do get to extend your trades. Like, you still do get to all in a lot more effectively. It's just if you're trading... I mean, because if it was Glacial for Glacial, you'd be trading... So basically what this means is that Glacial can lose to more slows. That's pretty minor. Okay, overall pretty minor, I think. And then this is all Arena. So, for competitive, yeah, we change almost nothing. There's just tiny adjustments to our priority on Aatrox, and on Camille, and on Ivern, and on Kai'Sa. And systemically, this is big, but cannot be fully predicted, because there's, like, you know, a lot of deep implications I gotta go through, and I've gotta have conversations about that. Like, let me just take a look at my most recent... I finally finished my jungle tier list, the first one I've had since, like, 13.1. Who's gonna get, like, really impacted by this? I mean, Maokai does get impacted by it, to a degree. Poppy can get hit pretty hard. Zyra can get hit pretty hard. I assume this means that you can still damage champions on rank 1 upgrade, but... You know what? And actually, Heimer's turret gaining 20 armor base probably compensates for the ratio a little bit, right? So maybe this turret's also tankier. Okay, so yeah, it's an easy one, and we will have to think we will wait for the ripple effects on this, right? And that's going to have to be on our mind. Okay, it's late. It's 10 o'clock already. I want to play solo queue, so let me just end the recording on this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll, like, no breaks, just cut straight in, right? Or maybe one break so I can use the washroom.